Hello and welcome to Reality Check. There is simply no other way to say this, but the BJP, specifically the Prime Minister and Amit Shah, despite saying they won't, are openly politicking in the aftermath of the Pulwama attack. Now, this is after the BJP and indeed the Congress promised to rise above politics. This was a tweet by Amit Shah on the day of the attack, February 14th. He says, I appeal to the political class, let's rise above politics and show that we are together when it comes to matter of national security. Nothing matters above India. The BJP spokesperson also said this.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी अपने सारे राजनीतिक कार्यक्रम रद्द करती है। माननीय अध्यक्ष श्री अमित भाई शाह जी के आज के तमाम राजनीतिक कार्यक्रम रद्द कर दिए गए हैं। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी, उनके भी जो राजनीतिक कार्यक्रम थे, इटारसी में आज रैली होनी थी, वो रद्द कर दिए गए हैं। ये राजनीतिक कार्यक्रम रद्द किए गए हैं क्योंकि हम क्षुब्ध हैं, हम देश के साथ खड़े हैं, किंतु देश के विकास के काम और गति से चलेंगे।
And it's true that from the very next day, the Prime Minister set off across the country to inaugurate a series of development projects from UP to Maharashtra to Jharkhand to Bihar. But these are not simple official events. Each event is designed as a rally, and in each speech, he's bringing up the Kashmir attack, stoking public anger, promising retaliation, and from that, pivoting to talking up his achievements and openly appealing for votes. Let's listen.
देश में जितना आक्रोश है, लोगों का खून खौल रहा है, ये मैं भली भांति समझ पा रहा। जो देश की अपेक्षाएं हैं, कुछ कर गुजरने की भावनाएं हैं, वो भी स्वाभाविक है। हमारे सुरक्षा बलों को पूर्ण स्वतंत्रता दे दी गई है। हमें अपने सैनिकों के शौर्य पर, उनकी बहादुरी पर पूरा भरोसा है। हमारे वीर जवानों ने देश की रक्षा में अपने प्राणों की आहुति दी है। उनका बलिदान व्यर्थ नहीं जाएगा। ये भरोसा झांसी की धरती से मैं 130 करोड़ हिंदुस्तान वासियों को देना चाहता हूं। पूरा देश उत्तर प्रदेश का आभारी है, क्योंकि हिंदुस्तान को 30 साल के बाद पूर्ण बहुमत की सरकार देना, हिंदुस्तान को पहली बार 30 साल के बाद फिर सरकार देना, हिंदुस्तान को 30 साल के बाद मजबूत सरकार देना, हिंदुस्तान को 30 साल के बाद फैसले लेने वाली सरकार देना। अगर उसमें सबसे बड़ी भूमिका किसी ने अदा की है तो ये मेरे उत्तर प्रदेश ने की है, मेरे उत्तर प्रदेश के मतदाताओं ने की। ये उत्तर प्रदेश के मतदाताओं के निर्णय शक्ति ने भारत का भाग्य बदल दिया है, भारत के भाग्य की दिशा बदल दी है। 30 साल से निराशा के गर्त में डूबे हुए देश को नई आशा जगाने का काम 2014 में ये उत्तर प्रदेश की जनता ने किया है। और मजबूत सरकार का मतलब क्या होता है, मजबूत सरकार का जन जन को लाभ क्या होता है, मजबूत सरकार से दुनिया में गौरव कैसे पैदा होता है, ये उत्तर प्रदेश ने करके दिखाया है, जिसका लाभ पूरे हिंदुस्तान ने पाया है। मुझे विश्वास है कि विकास के लिए, नए भारत के लिए आप आने वाले दिनों में भी मुझे और मजबूती से आशीर्वाद देंगे। मैं पुलवामा के शहीदों को एक बार फिर नमन करता हूं। देश की सुरक्षा के साथ ही देश की समृद्धि के लिए भी हमारी सरकार पूरी तरह प्रतिबद्ध है। विकास की पंचधारा यानी बच्चों की पढ़ाई, युवाओं को कमाई, बुजुर्गों को दवाई, किसानों को सिंचाई और जन जन की सुनवाई पर बल दिया जा रहा है।
BJP President Amit Shah has been even more direct. Speaking in Assam, he targeted the Congress while referring to the attacks.
मानेश्वर जी और उनके साथी 44 शहीदों को हम सब हृदय से श्रद्धांजलि देते हैं। एक कायरतापूर्ण हमला जो पाकिस्तान ने किया है, सीआरपीएफ के 45 जवानों का जिसमें मृत्यु हुआ है, वो व्यर्थ नहीं जाने वाला, क्योंकि इस बार केंद्र में कांग्रेस की सरकार नहीं है, इस बार केंद्र में आपकी बनाई हुई भारतीय जनता पार्टी की नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार है।
And yesterday, Mr. Shah in Jaipur making it clear who the credit should go to for India's response to the Pulwama attacks.
इन जवानों ने जो हमारी सेना की, हमारे सुरक्षा बलों की वीरता की उज्जवल परंपरा को आगे बढ़ाने का काम किया है, भारतीय जनता पार्टी की नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार इनके बलिदान को व्यर्थ नहीं जाने देगी। इनके बलिदानों का सुनिश्चित रूप से माकूल जवाब भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सेना के सरकार के द्वारा, हमारे सेना के जवानों के द्वारा दिया जाएगा। भारतीय जनता पार्टी एकमात्र ऐसी पार्टी है जो आतंकवाद के खिलाफ जीरो टॉलरेंस की नीति अपनाती है।
Okay, let's go to panel. We are joined by Yogendra Yadav, National President, Swaraj India. We have Vivek Reddy of the BJP with us, I beg your pardon. And Pawan Khera of the Congress is here in the studio. And so is Ruhi Tiwari, Associate Editor of the Print. Now, Yogendra, as I said at the outset, that, you know, we've been seeing this happening now from literally in the immediate aftermath of the attack, that the BJP and the Prime Minister had immediately started to milk it for political capital. But we were holding back because that was not the time to raise this. But I think now is the time, certainly, to call it out.
Absolutely, Vasu. If you remember, within 24 hours of this incident, I had made a proposal. And I thought it was a pretty non-partisan proposal. The idea was that I said, look, this is a national challenge. The entire country should meet it as one party, as it were. And the way to do so would be for the government to take opposition in confidence, which happens all over the world. For opposition to promise that we shall not do, you know, the usual criticism that happens on a day-to-day basis, hold it for some time. And for both the government and opposition to promise that they shall not make this into an election issue.
I remember that.
What it would have done, if this was followed, was to reduce the pressure on the government, not make it theatrical, and actually enhance India's national prestige. In reality, that hasn't happened. I would make a distinction between the Prime Minister and the rest of his party. I think what the Prime Minister has done are things which are sort of bordering on the inappropriate, bordering on violating the things, but he has not actually directly, you know, played partisan politics as yet. On the other hand, what Mr. Amit Shah has said, that if it was Congress, it would have been this, BJP is different, etc. That's downright partisan politics on this question. What the BJP leaders have been doing, Sakshi Maharaj and others, joining that Shava Yatra as if it's an election road show.
Right.
Now that's down, and what we heard from a Gujarat BJP leader today, this is just so partisan politics. I do see some Congress politicians getting into the same trap again, beginning to criticize. I should underline that Rahul Gandhi so far has maintained a certain dignity about it and has not got into partisan politics. I would still appeal, if it is possible at all, to maintain that non-partisan spirit, because that's the only way of defeating the designs of the terrorists.
Okay, well, let's see if that Laskhman Rekha, if we can ever return to it. I personally doubt that. But Ruhi, you actually wrote a piece in the Print where you pointed out that it was quite interesting that while the Prime Minister, as Yogendra says, was much more subtle about it and almost more tactical, he did keep referring to this idea that this is the new India, which is going to respond in a different way. And so, in a sense, that did bring in an element of politicking.
Sure. See, he was subtle, but he was as direct as he could be, Vasu. He very clearly said this is the new India, which is not going to sit quietly, which will avenge what happened in Pulwama. So it was very, very clear politics. He started from the morning after the attack when he spoke at the launch of the flagging of the Vande Mataram Express.
Right.
He may have cancelled his political rallies that day, but he
Sure.
did go for his events, and we know the lines between his political events and official events are extremely blurred. So he has been talking about it fairly openly,
Right.
about how he's not going to sit quiet, his government is not going to sit quiet, and as you rightly pointed out, Mr. Amit Shah went a step further.
Yes.
And was very direct, was absolutely, very, very clearly
Attacking the
trying to
Congress.
use it as a political tool.
Right. Vivek Reddy, while, as I said at the outset, it was very creditable that the Laskhman Rekha was laid down, but not even 48 hours to respect it, immediately to start making political statements, targeting the opposition.
Well, Vasu, I'm appalled by what Yogendra Yadav said and the other panelists said. Let me tell you very clearly that the Prime Minister and his references made are very clear that the sacrifices made by these warriors, by these heroes of this country, will not go in vain and it will be paid back. The second thing that he said was that we have absolute trust in our army men. Well, as a Prime Minister, I think it is the most obligatory part of his duty to tell this nation
Yes.
that there is confidence in the soldiers and the sacrifice will not go in vain. If the Prime Minister does not say it, who else should say it, Vasu? The
Can I
panelists
just ask
must
you-
understand. Of course,
Right.
it is easy to draw.
Yeah.
Of course, it is easy to draw
Yeah.
inferences and say this is politicking, as the
Right.
other panelists are trying to say. But no, it is
Okay.
incumbent upon a Prime Minister, the most obligatory part of his duty to
Right.
this nation.
Can I
to
just
say
ask you a
that, look
question?
here,
Can I
this
ask
is
you
the
a question?
direction in which we go
Okay,
in,
we've heard you.
in this time of tragedy.
Okay, we've heard you. Let me ask you a question. Number
And
one,
so
when
far
you
as
say
Amit Shah is
number one,
concerned,
I
so far
need
as
to
Amit
ask you.
Shah
I
is
need to
concerned.
ask you because we can't have monologues.
Yes.
The question really is that when you say it's obligatory, I want to ask you on what grounds is it obligatory that if he is going to inaugurate a defense corridor or a water supply project in Jhansi, or inaugurate trains, rail projects and irrigation projects in Bihar, or do gas distribution and riverfront development in Patna, why is he obligated, number one, to bring up repeatedly Pulwama at these events? Number two, he is openly at these gatherings canvassing for votes. We just heard him. This is not Yogendra saying it or Ruhi. We just heard the Prime Minister in his own voice say, the people of Uttar Pradesh gave me a huge majority. I'm confident they'll return me with another majority. This is outright politicking, and I'm not
What
even
is
getting
wrong
into
in
what Amit Shah said.
The Prime Minister is asking for blessings of the people. In his entire speech of half an hour or 45 minutes,
Yes.
which is usually the tenure of his speech, the time of his speech,
Yes.
we are extracting about 3 minutes or 1 minute, and we are trying to draw political
Can
conclusions.
I
But
tell
let me tell you,
that in the shortage
even
of
the
time,
3 minutes that he has spoken,
only for the shortage of time, we
In the
played a
3
clip.
minutes-
I played a short clip because of short. If I actually
All
were to
right.
play you, if I were to play you the full
all
Jhansi
right,
speech,
Vasu,
if I were to play you the
agreed
full
that he has
Jhansi
said
speech,
this. We
it's
take it.
50%
we
outright
take it as you
political
said.
appeal.
No, we take it as you said. Yes, we take it as you said. But wherever he is talking, the Prime Minister is talking about the question of the day, the question of the time, the
Okay.
question of the week.
All
you
right.
know, whenever such tragedies occur, the nation is outraged. And
Okay.
isn't it the most respectable part of his duty to tell the people of this country,
Okay.
this is the way forward? You look
Well,
at
then that's politicking.
George Bush.
Okay.
How he, 1 second.
All right,
how
Pawan Khera.
how George Bush
Vivek, I must get others.
tackled the World
Vivek, I
Trade
must
Center
allow
attack.
others. Vivek, I must allow
Absolutely,
others.
very clear
Okay,
as to
you're saying
what
it's
they
part
are
of his
doing.
duty, Pawan Khera,
And
is
they
a
are
part of
very
his duty.
robust in
Vivek,
making
you must
their
allow
work.
others.
It is
Vivek,
not
we must
political.
allow. Vivek, sorry, we must allow others. Yes, Pawan
Vasu,
Khera.
it's not as though there are no questions to be asked to this government vis-a-vis the Pulwama attack. But there is a time for those questions. As a responsible opposition, we did not ask where was the intel failure. We did not ask about reports that they had asked to be airlifted and the government refused. We are still not asking about Ajit Doval's son's business interests and business partners from Pakistan and Saudi
Well, in a
Arabia.
subtle way, you're doing all that.
No, I have to. But there is a time to do that. The Prime Minister should have, for God's sake, attended the all-party meeting. To begin with, please show some be solemn in this occasion. The Antim Ardas or the 13th day ceremony or the last rites are not yet over. And you've already started saying, turn nationalistic wave into votes. Your BJP leader in Gujarat saying that in as many words.
Right.
And you see the Nukkar rallies that you are doing across the country with RSS and BJP and different outfits of RSS. Doing what?
But those are out. We're not.
And
Is
sorry,
that
Vasu,
BJP?
I
No, but is that
absolutely
very
agree.
clearly BJP?
Everybody
Nothing
knows
wrong,
what's
Pawan
doing.
Kedar.
Just a sec, Vivek, I didn't
Pawan Kedar,
interrupt you.
you
I
did
didn't
nothing
interrupt
when
you.
such things
Let's
happen.
not
Vivek, one
reduce
second.
this debate to a tutu.
Vivek,
but just a second,
It's
just a
very
second.
critical.
Just a second.
And when you talk about New India, please have some respect for that old India, which won for you 1947, 1965, 1971 and 1999, Kargil, Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And we created Bangladesh, the old India created. So don't do this. Don't sort of keep patting your back. Now is the time to give some direction to the country.
Okay,
this is
Yogendra,
not the time to play politics, and especially not when you are the Prime Minister of India.
Okay, Yogendra, is
Can
it?
I come in,
It's
Vasu?
now, yeah, just a second, Vivek. I'm coming back to you.
Response.
Yogendra, is it now pretty clear that this is now clearly going to become an election issue? It is already emerging as one, but there's perhaps just a little more restraint than otherwise. But in a matter of weeks, this is going to be a full-throated election issue.
I fear that, Vasu, and the real fear is this. Whoever designed Pulwama attack, what intention did they have? The intention would have been that once we create this blast, a few dead bodies, and then in this country, the election agenda will be dominated by this incident that terrorists have done. Other issues will be forgotten. That there would be attacks on Kashmiris, threats, attacks, bullying, etc. And the distance between Kashmir and the rest of India would widen. And I'm afraid that's exactly the trap that we as a country are stepping in. So in a sense, terrorists are succeeding. Right. The whole point was to derail the country's politics. And I fear because of what is being done, largely, unfortunately, by those who are in power, actually perfectly fits into the designs of the terrorists. And there is another angle. The other angle is that, you see, all these operations, clearly the government is thinking of some retaliatory operations.
Yes.
These are not foolproof things. These are very, very difficult operations. Things go right, sometimes they do get wrong. Now, what the BJP is doing today is simply inviting the opposition to begin to question them from tomorrow. So if should some problem occur in that operation,
right, you're saying
now the opposition would have every legitimacy to jump and say you got it wrong.
One thing, if I can at least get everybody to agree on at least one thing, and let's just put up that tweet by Tathagat Roy, who's the governor of Tripura, in the context of trying to, I don't even know if this is political capital, but just stirring the communal pot, stirring the sectarian pot. If at least we can agree that this, and Vivek, I want you also to please help out here and agree that this is condemnable. This is what Tathagat Roy says. An appeal from a retired colonel of the Indian Army: don't visit Kashmir, don't go to Amarnath for the next 2 years, don't buy articles from Kashmir Emporia or Kashmiri tradesmen who come every winter, boycott everything Kashmiri. I am inclined to agree. Vivek, he's a constitutional authority, for God's sake. I'm sure you can't agree with, you can't accept this. I'm sure you will condemn this.
No, these are individual opinions. But let me tell you one thing.
He's a governor, Vivek.
Pawan Kedar and Yogendra Yadav.
He's a governor. Just on Tathagat. Help me out here.
This is still an individual opinion. This is
as
still
a governor,
an individual opinion. This is not
Vivek,
the
as a
stated position of the
constitutional
government.
head, he can't have
This
an
is not
individual
the
opinion.
Well, we can't. Why not? Why not, Vasu? He could have an individual opinion. I mean, that is not the government's opinion. The government did not fall behind that opinion. But let me tell you, Pawan Kedar and Yogendra Yadav.
Do you agree with the sentence? Okay, do you agree with this? Do you agree with what he said? Do you agree with what he said? Do you agree with at least grant me
Certainly
this?
not. Certainly not.
You don't agree?
No, certainly not. But let me tell you,
think there should be action
Pawan
against him?
Kedar and Yogendra Yadav.
You think there should be action against Tathagat Roy for holding such views?
We will. The government will look into it, Vasu. But let me tell you about what Pawan Kedar and Yogendra
I'll
Yadav
come
are
back
saying.
to what Pawan
They
Kedar
are-
and
they are
Yogendra Yadav
used to a
said.
very
I'll come back.
passive-
Vivek, I'll come back to
no,
that.
No, you have to
I'll give you a
allow me to
chance.
address
I'll give
that.
you a chance.
They
I'll give you a
are
chance.
used to a no response situation.
I'll
That's
give
the
you a
sad
chance.
thing in this country.
You are talking
They
to
are
a party
looking
which
at it as
which
shelter
created
incident.
Bangladesh. Please don't talk rubbish.
No, one second.
Be responsible.
One second. I
What
don't want
do
to get
you
into.
mean?
I don't
What
want to
do
get
you
into a
mean, Mr.
political.
Don't
Pawan
debate.
undermine the
For
bravery of
10
our
years,
soldiers
you
in
never reacted
1971
on
Okay, just a
terrorist
and
incidents.
before and after that. Please do not undermine the bravery of Sam Manekshaw.
These are too long ago.
Do not. What do you
These
mean
are
wrong
too
long
long
ago?
ago. You have
You
double
are
crossed this
undermining
government.
Sam
You have
Manekshaw's
betrayed
bravery.
this government. You know,
You are
betrayed Indians.
absolutely talking against
Learn
the
that,
Indian
Pawan
army now.
Kedar.
All right, Pawan.
You have
Pawan,
betrayed
Is that your
the people of
sentiment
India.
against Sam Manekshaw?
If
Pawan,
Kashmir
Vivek,
exists
Pawan,
today,
Vivek.
it is
Sorry,
because of your
don't-
dubious
don't-
Please do
case
not
of
insult the Indian army.
Don't force me to
For your
silence
politics.
my-
The Congress
Don't
dubious
force me to
case.
Cheap
silence
politics.
my-
Also give
Do
to
not,
Pawan,
do not
Pawan.
undermine the Indian
All right.
army. Do
Okay,
not insult the Indian army.
Pawan, let's move on. Pawan, let's move on.
we saw-
Okay, Vivek, sorry, I'll just have to silence Mike for a second because I want to come back to Tathagat Roy. It is not the first time that he's said stuff like this. He's a serial offender. But the fact that he can say something like this at this time and still possibly get away with it.
Look, there are no two ways about it, Vasu. Anybody saying it is unacceptable, the governor, who is a constitutional position holder, saying
Yes.
it is beyond unacceptable. Action must be taken. He cannot sort of keep repeating these things and getting away with them. What he said right now is, besides being, besides inciting people, besides
Yeah.
being insensitive, is
Yeah.
just disrespectful to his position and to the constitution of the country.
Yeah, he's taken an
It's
oath
not
on the
acceptable.
Constitution. So-
Absolutely. So there has to be action. I don't think this is something he should be allowed to be, get away with.
do all of you think, Pawan, let me ask you this. I mean, even this very debate is perhaps sort of a counter to what I'm going to ask you. But is it possible from here to try to go back to a Laskhman Rekha, to try to go back to restraint on these attacks? As Yogendra was saying, can we still pull it back from here? Or is it too late?
Vasu, have you seen any senior Congress leader attacking the government on this? Despite intel failures, I repeat, there have been intel failures, but we are quiet. We are waiting. We are trying to support this government. It's an hour of crisis. We will be and we are a
But you're gonna
responsible
continue to
opposition
do that
party.
then?
Unlike
That
what
is
Mr.
because
Modi
you
did
don't want to
when there were
speak
against
2611 attacks. Even when the
don't want to speak
bravehearts
against the
were fighting
terrorists.
inside the Oberoi Hotel,
That is
Mr.
why you're
Modi was
hiding.
standing
Okay,
there
one
holding a
second. I
press
was trying
conference
to-
attacking Manmohan Singh ji.
I'm
We are
trying
not
to
like
say-
that. We know how to be a
Congress
responsible
Pawan Kedar.
opposition, just as we knew how to
You
be a
will
responsible
never
person when
speak
in
against the
government.
terrorists.
You
That's
are
your
not.
problem.
Please, for God's sake, do not play politics on this.
Because you
Okay,
are
fine.
afraid of
Pawan,
your
let
own
me ask
life.
the same.
You and I both owe it to the people
Okay,
who died.
okay,
in that
Pawan,
attack.
Pawan, let me ask Vivek this. Vivek,
No.
will the BJP from here on out, okay, there have been some red lines crossed, but from here on out, will you try to pull it back? Will the BJP and the government stick to its promise of not trying to politicize this?
Well, let me tell you, Vasu, there is no red line crossed. A nation as powerful as India should make very strong and resolute statements as to what it is doing with such a tragedy.
God, Vivek.
This nation is not like the earlier Congress. It is not
Please
like
stop
the
playing
earlier
politics
Congress.
now.
Vivek,
Please
Vivek,
stop
Vivek.
playing politics.
Cowardly
Vivek.
used not to talk.
This country will
It
not
is not
forgive you.
politics.
The
You
Indian
never
army
talk
will
about
not forgive you.
terrorists. Mr.
Please
Pawan
do not
Kedar,
talk rubbish. Do
Congress
not
will
get
never
into
talk about
low-level
terrorists.
politics.
Why is that?
Do not
It is
get
rubbish.
indulge into
You are
low-level
talking
I
politics.
think I got my.
Why
I got
are
my
Very
you
question.
cheap.
talking against
This is
terrorists?
not.
I think
The
I-
Congress
not
is
pardonable.
I got the answer to my
Every
question.
veteran is watching you.
Please go ahead
The
and tell
families
what
of
your
the
stand is to this
bravehearts
nation.
are
Okay,
watching you.
gentlemen, let's
They
try.
will not forgive you.
Okay,
India will not
I don't
forgive
know
you.
what they'll make of this shouting
Sorry,
match
sorry.
either.
This is appalling.
Okay, okay.
आपको ये देश माफ नहीं करेगा.
All right, okay. Let's dial it down. Let's dial it down. Let's dial it down. Yogendra, any last words from you? We have very little time, but anything to say?
I would still hope, against hope, that some national consensus can be worked out, because we are playing with not just national honor, we are playing with the lives of thousands of our soldiers who are there on the border. Any adventurism which the government be forced into would be at the cost of all these soldiers. So for their sake, if nothing else, some national consensus is required, and that would mean, number one, Mr. Tathagat Roy must be sacked immediately. Number two, all these threats, bullying of Kashmiri students, in which the government has played a reasonably positive role so far.
Yes.
It should be completely
Where is the
stopped.
appeal by the Prime Minister?
And number three,
We expect the Prime
one
Minister to
statement
appeal,
from
Yogendra.
government or
Okay.
opposition. We shall not make it a
Okay.
exactly. Appeal should have come, which hasn't
Yes.
come.
Okay.
An appeal from the Prime Minister.
Okay, at least-
and still an acceptance from government and opposition that they will not make it an election issue.
Okay, we have literally 5 seconds. Do you think any of this is going to happen? Or is this wishful thinking?
How political it's going to be is very clear from the panel this evening, Vasu. As you saw both the Congress and BJP people fighting over Pulwama, this is how it's going to be a high decibel political campaign.
How
BJP
unfortunate.
started it, but the Congress is not going to sit quietly either. I'm fairly sure of that.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate, but that's how it is. Well, that's all the time we have on Reality Check. Thanks so much for watching. Good night.